Doggerland was an area of land in northern Europe, now submerged beneath the North Sea, that connected Britain to continental Europe. It was repeatedly exposed at various times during the Pleistocene epoch due to the lowering of sea levels during glacial periods. It was last flooded by rising sea levels around 6,500 to 6,200 BCE. The flooded land is known as the Dogger Littoral. Geological surveys have suggested that it stretched from what is now the east coast of Great Britain to what is now the Netherlands, the western coast of Germany, and the Danish peninsula of Jutland. It was probably a rich habitat with human habitations in the Mesolithic period, although rising sea levels gradually reduced it to low-lying islands before its final submergence, possibly following a tsunami caused by the Storegga slide. Doggerland was named after the Dogger Bank, which in turn was named after 17th century Dutch fishing boats called doggers. The archaeological potential of the area was first identified in the early 20th century, and interest intensified in 1931 when a fishing trawler operating east of the Wash dragged up a barbed antler point that was subsequently dated to a time when the area was tundra. Vessels have since dragged up remains of mammoths, lions, and other animals, and a few prehistoric tools and weapons. As of 2020, international teams are continuing a 2-year investigation into the submerged landscape of Doggerland, using new and traditional archaeo-geophysical techniques, computer simulation, and molecular biology. Evidence gathered allowed study of past environments, ecological change, and human transition from hunter-gatherer to farming communities. Formation. Until the Middle Pleistocene, Great Britain was a peninsula of Europe, connected by the massive chalk Weald Artois anticline across the Strait of Dover. During the Anglican glaciation, about 450,000 years ago, an ice sheet filled much of the North Sea with a large proglacial lake in the southern part, fed by the Rhine, the Scheldt, and the Thames. The catastrophic overflow of this lake carved a channel through the anticline, leading to the formation of the Channel River, which carried the combined waters of the Rhine, the Scheldt, and the Thames to the Atlantic. This probably created the potential for Great Britain to become isolated from the continent during periods of high sea level, although some scientists argue that the final break did not occur until a second ice-dammed lake overflowed during the MIS-8 or MIS-6 glaciations around 340,000 or 240,000 years ago. Kim Cohen and Mark Hejma date the final destruction of the Weald Artois anticline to the severe Sarlian glaciation, which reached its peak around 160,000 years ago and ended with the second meltwater lake around 130,000 years ago. During the most recent glaciation of the last glacial maximum, the North Sea and much of the British Isles were covered with glacial ice, and the sea level was about 120 meters or 390 feet lower. The climate later became warmer, and around 12,000 BCE, Great Britain, as well as much of the North Sea and the English Channel, was an expanse of low-lying tundra. Evidence including the contours of the present seabed indicates that after the first main ice age, the watershed between the North Sea and the English Channel extended east from East Anglia, then southeast to the Hook of Holland, rather than across the Strait of Dover. The Seine, the Thames, the Meuse, the Scheldt, and the Rhine joined and flowed west along the English Channel as a wide, slow river before eventually reaching the Atlantic Ocean. In about 10,000 BCE, the north-facing coastal area of Doggerland had a coastline of lagoons, salt marshes, mudflats, and beaches, as well as inland streams, rivers, marshes, and lakes. It may have been the richest hunting, fowling, and fishing ground in Europe in the Mesolithic period. One large river system found by a 3D seismic survey overtaken by the Birmingham North Sea Paleolandscapes Project drained the southeastern point of the Dogger Bank Hill area, into the east end of the Outer Silver Pit Lake. It has been named the Schotten River after the Birmingham geologist Frederick William Schotten. Disappearance. An ice melted at the end of the last glacial period of the current ice age. Sea levels rose, and the land began to tilt in an isostatic adjustment as the huge weight of ice lessened. Doggerland eventually became submerged, cutting off what was previously the British peninsula from the European mainland by around 6,500 BCE. The Dogger Bank, an upland area of Doggerland, remained an island until at least 5000 BCE. Key stages are now believed to have included the gradual evolution of a large tidal bay between eastern England and Dogger Bank by 9000 BCE and a rapid sea level rise thereafter, leading to Dogger Bank becoming an island and Britain becoming physically disconnected from the continent. A recent hypothesis suggests that around 6200 BCE, much of the remaining coastal land was flooded by a tsunami caused by a submarine landslide off the coast of Norway, known as the Storegga Slide. This suggests that the Storegga Slide tsunami would have had a catastrophic impact on the contemporary coastal Mesolithic population. Britain finally became separated from the continent, and in cultural terms, the Mesolithic there goes its own way. It is estimated that up to a quarter of the Mesolithic population of Britain lost their lives. A study published in 2014 suggested that the only remaining parts of Doggerland at the time of the Storegga Slide were low-lying islands, but supported the view that the area had been abandoned at about the same time as the tsunamis. Another view speculates that the Storegga tsunami devastated Doggerland, but then ebbed back into the sea, and that later Lake Agassiz in North America burst, releasing so much fresh water that sea levels rose over about 2 years as to flood much of Doggerland and make Great Britain an island. The difference in distribution of broken shells between lower-lying and high-lying parts of the area also suggests survival of land after the Storegga tsunami. Discovery and investigation by archaeologists. The existence of what is now known as Doggerland was established in the late 19th century. The remains of plants brought to the surface from Dogger Bank were studied in 1913 by Clement Reid, and the remains of animals and worked flints from the Neolithic period had also been found. In his book, The Antiquity of Man of 1915, anatomist Sir Arthur Keith discussed the archaeological potential of the area. In 1931, the trawler Colinda hauled up a lump of peat whilst fishing near the Ower Bank, 40 kilometers or 25 miles east of Norfolk. The peat was found to contain a barbed antler point, possibly used as a harpoon or fish spear, 220 millimeters or 8.5 inches long, which dated from between 10,000 and 4,000 BCE when the area was tundra. Interest was reinvigorated in the 1990s by Brian E. Coles, who named the area Doggerland after the Great Banks of the southern North Sea and produced speculative maps of the area. Although she recognized that the current relief of the southern North Sea seabed is not a sound guide to the typography of Doggerland, this topography has been more recently begun to be reconstructed more authoritatively using seismic survey data obtained from oil exploration. Between 2003 and 2007, a team at the University of Birmingham led by Vince Gaffney and Ken Thompson mapped around 23,000 square kilometers or 8,900 square miles of the early Holocene landscape, using seismic data provided for research by Petroleum Geoservices as part of the University of Birmingham North Sea Paleolandscapes project. The results of this survey were published as a technical monograph and a popular book on the history and archaeology of Doggerland. Names have been given to some of its features: the spines to a system of dunes above Broad, Shotton River, the upland area of the Dogger Bank, a basin between the huge sandbag called the Outer Silver Pit. A skull fragment of a Neanderthal dated at over 40,000 years old was recovered from material dredged from the Middle Deep from some 16 kilometers or 10 miles off the coast of Zeeland and exhibited in Leiden in 2009. In March 2010, it was reported that recognition of the potential archaeological importance of the area could affect the future development of offshore wind farms. In 2019, a flint flake partially covered in birch bark tar dredged up off the coast of the Netherlands provided valuable insight into Neanderthal technology and cognitive evolution. In 2012, the results of a study of Doggerland by the universities of Birmingham, St Andrews, Dundee, and Aberdeen, including surveys of artifacts, were displayed at the Royal Society's summer expedition in London. Richard Bates of St Andrews University said, and I quote, "We have speculated for years on the lost land's existence from bones dredged by fishermen all over the North Sea. But it's only since working with oil companies in the last few years that we've been able to recreate what this lost land looked like. We have now been able to model its flora and fauna, build up a picture of the ancient people that lived there, and begin to understand some of the dramatic events that subsequently changed the land, including the sea rising and a devastating tsunami." End of quote. Since 2015, the University of Bradford's Europe's Lost Frontiers project has continued mapping the prehistoric landscapes of Doggerland and has used this data to direct a program of extensive coring of marine paleochannels. Sediment from the cores has provided sedimentary DNA as well as conventional environmental data, and these will be used in a major computational modeling program replicating colonization of the submerged landscape. In 2019, a team of scientists from the University of Bradford and Ghent University found a hammerstone flint on the seabed 40 kilometers or 24 miles off the coast of Cromer, Norfolk, from a depth of 32 meters or 105 feet, which could point to the existence of prehistoric settlements. An internationally significant early Middle Paleolithic finds assemblage from the southern North Sea were also discovered through aggregate dredging of the coast of Norfolk. The cultural material was found to be associated with a floodplain deposit of the now submerged Paleo-Yare river system. Ancient artifacts have been found by beachcombers in materials dredged from the sea bottom 13 kilometers or 8.1 miles ashore and spread on a Dutch beach in 2012 as a coastal protection measure. In media, the area was featured in a 2007 episode of the Channel 4 Time Team documentary series called Britain's Drowned World. It was followed up in 2017 by Britain's Stone Age tsunami, investigating the Storegga slide's effect on the land. And that is it. I'm not going to read the links. Good games. I can't believe we lost. I cannot believe you dodged top 3 out the cannon on DKM. I'm very salty, but a promise is a promise. Good games.